Welcome back. You're watching The Globe. President Cyril Ramaphosa will take over the helm of the African Union in the year 2020. This was announced at the AU summit, which ended in Ethiopia today.
He spoke to the SABC today in Addis Ababa, where he expressed his anger over Eskom's stage 4 loadshedding currently underway, and also dismissed claims he is reviving former antigraft units, the Scorpions. SABC Foreign editor Sophie Mokoena began her discussion with the president by asking him if the African Union is ready to deal with the challenge of refugees and internally displaced persons.
That is the theme of the summit. The summit, the AU is beginning to focus on real issues that affect the lives of ordinary people across the length and the breadth of the continent. And the issue of refugees and internally displaced persons, as they call them, IDPs, is a major issue on our continent. People are displaced and become refugees for a whole range of reasons: economic reasons, violence in a number of places, wars and famine, and all these combine to make people to want to leave their homes and go for refuge in other countries and become internally displaced in their own country and spill over to others, neighboring states. So the fact that the continent has placed it top of the agenda for this year means that the continent is ready to get to grips with it, to prevent the displacement of people, and if they are displaced, to immediately find ways of dealing with the challenge. And I think the African Commission is going to be, the EU Commission is going to be able to set up the structures, to set up the mechanisms of being able to support those who become refugees and internally displaced. Well, a lot is being done by the African Union and the various structures that have been put in place to address these challenges. The AU has decided that it wants to stop wars. It wants to silence the guns by 2020. And that is in a short space of time. At the same time, measures are being taken by regional bodies to address the various conflicts that are taking place. For instance, in South Sudan, IGAD has taken steps to seek to bring about peace in South Sudan. An agreement has now been reached, and those who've been at loggerheads with each other are all going to go back and form a government, a transitional government. And that, in our view, is important, because in the end it is going to make sure that there is peace in that country, and a number of other countries as well. Regional bodies are taking charge of the peace formation movement and making sure that we ensure that there is peace. So the continent and its leaders is not sitting back and doing nothing. It is continuously engaged in peace efforts.
The DRC, you met the president of the DRC, Felix Tshisekedi, today.
Yes.
There were, reports that the AU and the SADC don't really agree on one position in terms of either endorsing the new president or asking for him to form a government of national unity. You met him today. What was the final resolution to this issue, looking at South Africa as a guarantor of peace in that country with our troops being there?
Well, in South Africa, we met President Felix Tshisekedi and congratulated him on his election and wished him the very best as he heads the DRC. And we also wished the whole country goodwill in terms of consolidating the peace. Things are quiet in the DRC. The fears that many people had that the DRC would descend into chaos and mayhem have not really eventuated, and obviously there were differences of approach by a number of institutions and bodies and governments around the world. But all has now come down to saying there is a new government in the DRC, there's a new president, and we must all rally behind legitimately elected and recognized president to get on with the work of consolidating peace and generating progress in the country. He is committed to doing just that, and he deserves the support of all of us so that DRC can move on and improve the lives of the people in the DRC. He is going to be putting together a cabinet, so he is now involved in the task of forming a government, and clearly he's going to be appointing people who will do quite a lot of the work that needs to be done, including dealing with the challenges of people who are in exile, dealing with the challenges of the economy, dealing with the challenges of eradicating poverty in his country and infrastructure. So let us give President Tshisekedi a chance to succeed, and let us all back him and support him in the important work that he has to do, rather than become, people who are just armchair critics and throwing stones at the work that he still has to do.
I want to stay with the SADC matters. Zimbabwe, our neighbor, there are concerns that things are getting out of hand, and South Africa being a neighbor, we are likely to feel the impact of the challenges in Zimbabwe. You also met President Emmerson Mnangagwa. Are you convinced that Zimbabwe will be able to resolve its problems?
Yes, I am convinced. I think President Mnangagwa is committed to making sure that Zimbabwe moves on from the past that they have had. He wants to grow the economy. He wants to make sure that they mobilize investments. And it is for this reason that we have called for the lifting of sanctions against Zimbabwe. They are facing enormous challenges. The economy is not performing as well as it should, but they've got plans. They've got clear strategies, and he's trying to get everyone to work together. He's trying to get a consensus amongst the key role players in Zimbabwe, political parties, the churches, the unions. So every country goes through its ups and downs, and they need space. They need an opportunity to get over some of the upheavals that they have had, so that they can then move on and get on with the task of building a durable economy and make sure that the Zimbabweans get a better life.
Are you going to assist Zimbabwe? If so, how?
Well, discussions are ongoing, and as we have said in the past, ministers of finance on both sides have been meeting, governors of the central banks on both sides have been meeting, and they are going to finalize a report and table it to myself and President Mnangagwa. So there are discussions that are going on, and I know everybody is impatient. They want the report yesterday, but these things take time. We need to analyze everything very, very carefully. So we should allow that process to go on until it reaches fruition. We've always said that the best way of solving any country's problems is when people sit down and they talk and build consensus and collaborate, and it is through all that that we're able to come up with solutions. And the same applies not only to Zimbabwe, but to our country as well, and indeed to any other country. So that is the message that we spread around, that it served us well in the past to get all stakeholders, even people who hated each other, who did not even want to talk to each other. We got them to sit down and talk, and through that we were able to find consensus.
How are you going to ensure that as we do business with other countries, there is fairness in the trade relations with all the countries? South Africa is not this big monster, or perhaps a big brother.
Well, we still are the most industrialized country on the continent. Our economy is much more developed than others, and so therefore we play a role of being supportive, being of assistance to other countries, but at the same time we've also got to look at our own national interests, and our national interests obviously have to be balanced with the interests of other countries. And the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement enables us to level the playing field, to make sure that all countries on the continent get an opportunity to trade their goods and services on an equal basis. And the tariff regime that we are going to be finalizing and agreeing to is going to enable all of us to be able to have intra-Africa trade, so that all of us trade within the borders of our continent. That in itself is going to lead to great benefits for many countries, if not all countries on the continent, will be able to put our manufacturing at a higher level, because countries will be able to produce goods, and it also creates great opportunities for entrepreneurs, small and medium enterprises, and indeed big businesses, because they'll be able to peddle their goods and services right across the borders of the continent and be able to make good with whatever they produce without any barriers, because the Continental Free Trade Agreement is going to remove barriers. It's going to enable trade to take place. But at the back of it all, it is going to lead to the generation of manufacturing opportunities, because when people manufacture, they will now know that they have a 1.2 billion market, which is going to be almost $3 trillion in terms of value. And that in itself is attractive. And Africa is one continent that has up to 6 fastest growing economies in the world. And that is going to increase exponentially when we finally are able to open the market of Africa to all the countries on the continent. So a great opportunity is coming on the horizon for Africa.
Mr. President, linked to that is South Africa's own campaign to ensure that we grow the economy. As we do that, the climate has to be conducive. We recently had reports that there are concerns from the European countries and the US in terms of how we are dealing with certain issues that are likely to affect investment in South Africa. The issue of corruption, the issue of respect for rule of law. Your response to the so-called letter from the concerned diplomats in South Africa with the aim of ensuring that we don't find ourselves in a situation where investors are reluctant because their embassies are reluctant to endorse our programs or our quest to ensure that we have more investors investing in South Africa?
Well, what was published by one of the newspapers in our country ended up being something which the various countries said is a non-letter. So it was not a letter in existence. However, they were raising issues that we need to pay heed to, and we should never hide our heads in the sand. They were raising concerns about visas, and they said much as we announced that the visa regime is going to change, people are still having great difficulties. And it is true. When I went to India, that was raised with me. So there are still problems, and these are problems that we are going to attend to. Even coming here to the African Union, I've heard that there are some people and countries that still have visa issues. So these are issues that we must address, but we must be grateful that we still have friends, and both in Africa, on the African continent and elsewhere, who raise these issues openly with us. There are 2-3 countries here at the AU who raise this issue. So they are our friends, and they raise these issues, and we must pay heed, and we are going to address them. The issue of corruption, everyone knows that we are addressing the issue of corruption. I know of no country that has instituted the type of commission process that we have, where we've opened ourselves up to things that happened in the past. And we are dealing with that. And the prosecutorial authority is going to be following up on a number of issues, as they should, because where people have done wrong, they must be accountable. You can't do wrong and say, I've done wrong, but I don't want to be accountable. So all that is going to happen as time goes on. The rule of law, South Africa is grounded and founded on the rule of law. We have a constitution that dictates that there must be rule of law. So there's no way we can run anywhere under a tree or whatever. We've got to apply the rule of law. So all the issues that have been raised are being addressed. They're going to be attended to. And fortunately, many investors know that we are addressing these issues. They are not running away from us. They are not turning their backs on us. They are saying, we like investing in South Africa. If only you could address these issues, we would even commit much more. And so that's exactly what we want to do. We want them to commit much more, to bring more investments into the country. This includes local investors as well. Our own companies want us to address a number of issues, including the ease of doing business, including the permit regime in our country, the bottlenecks that people encounter when they want to get this license, that license. All that has to be straightened out. And we are going to be doing precisely that because we know what the challenges are now.
Within the NDPP, there's going to be a unit that is going to deal with issues of corruption. And many people were quick to say, the scorpions are coming back. Can you elaborate on this issue, this unit? How is the unit going to operate? 2, where are we going to get the resources to ensure that the unit is able to do its work, and perhaps to ensure that there's no political interference?
Well, I'd like you to watch this space on Thursday when I reply in Parliament, because I'm going to deal with this issue, because a lot of misinformation is going around that this is the return of the scorpions. It isn't the return of the scorpions, and I'll be able to elaborate more clearly about what we are doing and how this unit is going to function. It is a unit which is set up in terms of our law, our existing law, and it is going to be addressing specific areas of acts of corruption. So on Thursday, watch this space. When I reply in Parliament, I'll be addressing this issue more specifically.
Let's talk about the Eskom, the unbundling of Eskom. Today, we hear the reports that there's an electricity crisis at home. Did you get the report, and what is government doing or cabinet doing to ensure that we really address the issue of energy, because energy is the lifeblood of commerce?
Well, that's precisely what we said in the State of the Nation address, that energy is really the real important generator of economic growth in our country, and we are addressing it. We've heard that there's stage 4 load shedding. Now that comes as quite a shock, because it's reported that there are 6 units that have gone down. Now that is most worrying, most disturbing, and it has shocked me and has also made me quite angry that we've reached this stage of dysfunctionality. And the Minister of Public Enterprises is busy right now, together with the board, with that issue. And when I get back home, I will be getting a report. So we've got to address this, because Eskom is a risk. We've got all our energy eggs in one basket. When the generator of energy in our country reports that there are 6 units. It means that all 6 eggs are broken, and possibly we just have maybe a dozen eggs, and it should not be like that. And that is why we are saying we now need to have a new business model for Eskom, where we're able to minimize the risk, minimize our risk as a nation, like other countries have done. And unless we do so, we are continuously going to be facing this type of risk. Anybody who runs, a business will know that the more you put all your eggs, all your fortunes in one entity, you're likely to face serious risk and danger. So where we are now, we're almost in danger zone in as far as energy generation is. And we've got to solve it. And we've come up with a clear plan of how we can solve it. And to this end, we want to engage with everyone and say, let us sit down and talk about this so that we're able to get over the challenges and the difficulties that we are having right now.
How are you going to ensure that Labour is on board, unions in that sector, understand exactly what government wants to do in the interest of the country? We saw reports that some unions are saying we're not going to agree to this. Yes. President Cyril Ramaphosa will meet us in the streets.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Labour clearly, they are worried about a number of issues. Firstly, that they want to be consulted at a deep level, which we are going to do. We're going to sit down with Labour. Already we are arranging meetings so that we can discuss these issues and find solutions. And they're also concerned about the issue of jobs, because they say once you start having these 3 entities, divisions, it means that workers are just going to be retrenched. And we are saying we want a just transition. I mean, the workers that they represent are our people. They are South Africans. We are concerned about working people. And this is one government that has demonstrated very clearly that the concerns of working people are the concerns of all South Africans. So we're going to be able to sit down and say, this is the challenge we face. And once we get to grips with the challenge we face, then we've got to come up with what are the solutions. It's almost like a person who has diabetes. If you've got a disease called diabetes, the doctors will tell you that, hey, you must stop taking sugar, you must stop taking this and that. You've got to change your lifestyle. Unless you do so, you're going to die. And so therefore, we are saying, let us look how we save Eskom so that Eskom continues to employ people, Eskom continues to play the key role in the economy of our country. And in the end, this is a common problem. This is our problem, all of us. It's not a Cyril Ramaphosa problem. It's not a Pravin Gordhan problem. It's our common problem. We've got to find solutions. And some of the solutions may be difficult and painful. Sometimes we need to grasp the nettle and say, to secure a better future, we've got to take this difficult path. And the time has come for us as South Africans. We've got, for instance, Eskom has not been collecting enough revenue from all of us as users of electricity. We've got to find a solution for that. Many of our people are not paying for electricity. And users must now know that if we want electricity and if we want Eskom to survive, we've got to be paying for the electricity that we use. Just like you pay for the airtime that you use when you use the cell phone, you pay. And similarly here, you pay, but government has gone a long way to assist indigent families, those who are not able to afford, and the government has come to the party. So all these matters have got to be discussed, and we've got to sit down and discuss them in a calm manner and find solutions. Eskom is far too important not to be saved by all of us. All of us must participate in saving Eskom.
SABC has similar challenges, and the other issue that transpired over the weekend, there were standoff between SABC and the Minister of Communications. How are you going to ensure that as an institution, as government, as a shareholder, that SABC continue to function?
Yes.
It has got finance challenges right now, but also its independence is maintained.
Well, SABC is a public broadcaster. It is there to represent communication processes of the nation on behalf of the nation. So as far as that is concerned, its independence has got to be secured. But its operations have got to also be supported, but it's got to be well managed as well. It's got to be well managed, just like Eskom. It's got to cut costs. It's got to make sure that it is efficient in operations, and it's got to address and meet the mandate that it has been given. So all these things have got to be transformed, renewed, modernized, so that we can secure a future for all these entities. Our SOEs are in the same position, be it Eskom, be it Transnet, be it SABC. All of them have got to be transformed, modernized, made more efficient, focus on the mandate that they've been given. And we are now in a period of renewal. And that renewal must mean that we're renewing the way that we do things, and we're renewing the way that we address the mandate that we have all been given. That includes government as well. That includes how we are going to restructure government so that government is fit for purpose to meet the needs of our people. So we want South Africans to embrace this new spirit, and we are saying we want it to be a collective effort. All of us must get involved. And it is for this reason that I've called for proposals. Come forward and make proposals. How do we move forward? And we are not closing our ears. We are saying, let us sit down and talk about the ailments that our institutions have and what we can do to reposition them for the future.
Should the ANC win elections, clearly you are going to be the president of the country. Are we likely to see a smaller cabinet, and are you likely to ensure that those who are in that cabinet are credible? That's the final question.
Well, the ANC clearly, is going to campaign to win the elections, and we are going to, as we have said, even last year, we're going to look at the reconfiguration of government so that government focuses on what needs to be done for the interests of the people of South Africa. So watch this space and see the extent to which new government will be reconfigured. We still have a little bit of time, so you don't have to wait for too long.